Did you know that the majority of people experience imposter syndrome at least once in their career? I've read sources that say up to 85% of us have felt that way at some point. But hey, we're not alone. Today I'm here to talk about imposter syndrome, what it is, what I've experienced, some tips I've used to overcome it, and even how we can use it to our advantage. So let's jump in. Imposter syndrome is that pesky, persistent feeling that you're maybe not quite good enough, or that the success you have received or earned maybe isn't deserved. It's that voice that you're not as capable or as talented or competent as maybe your peers claim or say that you are. And you're really fearful that perhaps you could be found out, right? So that's all a part of imposter syndrome. Now, imposter syndrome is not something that's going to be diagnosed. At the end of the day, it is an emotion or a human element, something that a lot of us, up to 85% of us, right, are going to experience. And that can show itself even if you do have a healthy self-esteem or you have evidence of your abilities. So there's a few things that'll come up that kind of point to, perhaps you too have experienced imposter syndrome. So let me cover those really quick. I think the first one really being self-doubt. You just have doubt about your abilities. Whether you have the proof or not, you have the self-esteem, you doubt your next steps, you doubt yourself. Again, that negative thinking seeping its way into your mindset. You're going to discount yourself. So discounting yourself, meaning you're making excuses. So you say, this success is because I was lucky, or this success is because I worked with a really great team around me. The next two kind of go hand in hand. Overachiever or perfectionist, probably both. And the issue with this is that you're going to set unreasonably high goals that probably nobody can achieve. And again, when you set such a high bar that's not achievable, that's also going to just be an open invite for imposter syndrome. And finally, downplaying our skills. So that is when we have a seat at the table and we go to present ourselves or pitch ourselves or just talk about ourselves and we downplay it. Let me talk about where this all started, when I sort of woke up one day realizing, oh my gosh, there's an issue here. How can I work on it? How can I grow from here? So I went from one industry to the next. I went from educational technology into that B2B SaaS or tech. And when I made that switch, I was highly confident that I could do it. But then boom, there we are. I get in and oh my gosh, everything is much faster paced. Everything switched and changed. And I was completely stressed. I was nervous. I remember going into calls stressed and shaking even sometimes. It was pretty bizarre how I felt going into this. And a lot of it was because I was learning on the fly. I knew what I was doing, but at the same time, I didn't have that confidence level. And a lot of times it was just figuring it out as I was going, again, inviting that imposter syndrome. Woke up one day saying, okay, I cannot live like this. What do I need to do? So again, it opened up my kind of growth mindset of, okay, I'm going to learn. I'm going to figure this out. It's rallying with different teammates, and not just on my marketing team, but across the entire company. Looking back, this was sort of that pivotal moment for me in my career and what ultimately led me to become a solopreneur, because I learned to accept that imposter syndrome and turn it into an advantage, because I'm always growing and I feel like I'm always learning. And again, that point in my career, it really accelerated my growth. So here are some tips or tools that I've used to really combat imposter syndrome, what I've learned over time to really manage it and what has worked for me. So the first one here is to remind yourself consistently what you actually do well. So at the end of the day, I always come back to what is it that I do really well? What is my expertise? And I remember that and kind of use it as a solid foundation. And if I get to work on certain projects or things in that field, then I go right back to it, because again, it is that confidence booster for me anyway. And I think from there too, it lends itself well into my next tip is really reframing the way you talk to yourself. So instead of, I don't belong here. No, don't say that to yourself. Say, I'm learning here, or I'm learning something new here, or I'm still learning, whatever it may be. So I think just reframing when you hear yourself being negative, that self-talk, try to reframe it in a way that you're learning. Next thing down is define success on your own terms. What do I mean by that? we are all influenced every single day by everything around us, right? Social media, societal expectations, and then our own expectations. And again, this comes back to that overachieving nature or that perfectionism of scale that back and stop and think about what does success look like. And I advise you to write that down. Put it somewhere that you can reference it so that you can go back to it. What is success? And that can be anything, even leaning on growth, right? It's to learn something new, to be consistently learning something new. It could be to deliver X amount of projects. It doesn't matter what it is. The whole point is, what is your idea or definition of success? Write it down and stick to it and refer back to it whenever the imposter syndrome sneaks back in. And this lends itself really well to the next piece, which is to reflect on your progress. So you do have your success metrics kind of set up for yourself. You know what success looks like. Look at that. Mark your progress. Update what success looks like to you as you learn and grow. Look at it every quarter, every year. It doesn't matter, but look at it and check your progress. And most importantly from this element, it's celebrating your failures. I come from a background in marketing, so for me it's super important to do that, because as marketers, yes, we're using the data and our knowledge around us to build successful campaigns, but guess what? Not all of them are successful. We learn from them. We have that kind of scientific mindset of, I'm testing this, let's see how it goes, and we learn from it. Now, there are some successes in there too, right? But learning from our failures and celebrating our failures can also be a really important thing to beat the imposter syndrome. My next tip is, I think imposter syndrome can actually be a motivator for being prepared and for better project management skills. And the reason I say that is because the number one way that I beat imposter syndrome was by being more prepared. When I would walk into a meeting and be completely blindsided, or if I was called into something and I had to present and I just wasn't ready, forget it. That's when the shakes would start and I'm like, I don't know, I'm not sure. And I would just kind of spiral. And again, for me, it came down to knowing your audience. And I don't mean your customers, I'm talking about within your world, whoever it is, whatever team you're on, if you have clients or if you have a leadership team, whatever it is, whoever it is you need to talk to on a regular basis in order to communicate expectations or communicate successes or whatever it may be, campaign plans, you name it. Being prepared is actually probably my number one tip and the number one thing that helped me over time. So I think it's also important to interview those people around you. Understand what makes them tick, what their pain points are, what they care about, and then tailoring how you prepare to them. So you put together a deck, okay, every Monday I got to present this deck, and you start to anticipate what they're going to ask you or what they might need. Go in with it in your back pocket, ready to go. And finally, my final tips, don't be afraid to talk to people about it. If 85% of us, even if that's less, if it's still a huge number, if 85% of us are going through this at some point or have experienced imposter syndrome, then we get it. We've been there. And I think I would hope that most people are willing to listen and to support. Identify that ally. I used to be horrible about presenting. I couldn't present because I would just shake and I just was so nervous. I would lose my thoughts because I just wasn't, for several reasons, wasn't prepared and I just didn't have the confidence, you name it. So with time I learned, bring in an ally, someone who's not there necessarily to hear my presentation because it's going to impact their day-to-day or their job or what they're going to be working on. But I would bring them in so that they could give me real feedback. And then also it's just an ally in the room who is going to stand up at the end and clap you on, right? So I think just having that person who's going to have your back, again, whether it's a leader or a colleague, that's been super important to me as well. So those are my tips on how to combat imposter syndrome. If you have any others, what have you done that has actually helped you beat imposter syndrome? Make sure you put those in the comments below. Imposter syndrome doesn't have to hold you back. It can keep you learning, keep you growing, and keep you connecting with others around you. So if this video was helpful, be sure to like and subscribe to my channel where I will be sharing even more information on not just imposter syndrome, but on marketing, career growth, solopreneurship, you name it. And be sure to also drop some comments if you have also experienced imposter syndrome and what you've done to kind of overcome some of it. I would love to hear from you and start a discussion in the comments, so I will see you there. In the meantime, I'm Kelly Vivanco, and I will see you next week. Bye.